everyone. My name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all, and today we are going to be reacting to Reddit. Specifically, we are going to be looking at Am I the Asshole stories, and I will be providing my judgment about whether or not I think people in those stories are assholes or not. Should be a fun time, right? And the reason why this came about is because I asked you all for some ideas of lighthearted topics I could cover on my channel that I haven't done before, because my brain is stuck thinking about all of the various news cases and allegations of grooming that need to be covered in the world, and sometimes I just need help putting my brain on a different set of train tracks, and a couple of you all thought it would be really fun to talk about Am I the Asshole? Because if y'all don't know, r/Am I the Asshole is a very, very, very popular subreddit. People are on there all the time. It's gotten to the point where a lot of the stories on there are probably fake. So just take anything I share here with a major grain of salt, as you should with anything online. But the point is, people go to the Reddit, they share a story, and they request that people give them a judgment about whether or not they are the asshole. And then people can give them a rating, whether they are the asshole, they are not the asshole, everybody sucks here, or no assholes here. There's a couple other ones in there as well, but those are the main ones to worry about. And I'm excited, I'm nervous, I'm apprehensive about what's going to happen here, because I have picked out a couple, but I have not really looked at the comments below, the responses below, so I have no idea how the vanilla public has taken some of these. And some of these are from the main subreddit, and then some of them are from a much smaller BDSM focused Am I the Asshole subreddit. So we're going to do kind of a mix of both, see how it goes. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get into the first story, which is a big one. This one is, Am I the asshole for considering taking off my 24/7, quote, collar? Right away, the collar in quotes makes me raise an eyebrow. Like, is it not physically literal collar? Do they not consider themselves to be collared? And it was like a little switcheroo moment? Like, okay, all right, let's go ahead and get into this. Okay, so the story begins. I, 26, am collared by a dom, 34. For the past, oh, and by the way, it's spelled in a way that indicates, they don't have genders for either, but I'm going to assume that the dom is femme, if that ever ends up mattering in the story. For the past 6 months, I have been her slave/pet and a domestic servant, and loving it. Okay, good, we love it. My first actual taste of the kink life. Oh, okay, 6 months, collared, first kink relationship. Okay. However, starting in May, she said she needed a kink break. I understood as we were both new to kink at the beginning of it, so, they were both new. Okay, so that's, like, less bad. I understood as we were both new to kink at the beginning of it, so a break made sense. Now it's almost the end of June, and she still has not given me clarity on when she would want to start kink back up again. I'm feeling very anxious about it, but also a bit upset over the lack of communication and lack of clarity on her end. She wants to become a pro-dom and has said that my sessions with her in the future would be cut a lot shorter and less than what they were, which, first of all, good for her, but also I'm feeling like she is trying to get rid of me at this point by always saying she is busy, never actually messaging me, and noted we are friends outside of kink too, so it's not just about kink with her and I, and never actually saying when she is free next. At this point, I'm considering taking off my collar. It's a bracelet. Okay, so that's the air quotes, or the just regular quotes, I guess, around it is that it's a bracelet, as I feel like the sense of ownership is gone, and the communication just isn't there on her end. I'm not really liking wearing it anymore, as it just makes me sad. Am I the asshole here? Okay, so we got a classic lack of communication scenario happening in this situation. And here's my opinion. Okay, people have very strong feelings about collars. Not knowing from this post what kind of intentionality went into wearing a collar, and knowing that they are both new, I'm going to assume this is not a permanent, forever, you are bound to me throughout all of time and existence type of collar, where removing it would be tantamount to an immediate breakup instantly, no questions asked, and or it's just simply not allowed, and if you ever try, there will be major consequences. This sounds to me like, okay, we kind of know the terms, we kind of know maybe what we want to get into. The collaring thing seems like a thing people do, so let's do that, and is representative of our relationship, and now obviously that relationship is falling apart, and therefore it doesn't mean what it used to. I am one of those people where I think a collar should be symbolic, at least, for my own relationships. I believe it's best when it symbolizes something that is already true about a relationship, not when it is used to make a relationship go in a certain direction, if that makes sense. So if it's the case that the relationship is simply not there anymore, and there appears to be no genuine hope of recovering it to the level that it would need to be at to make one comfortable wearing the collar, I think removing it is perfectly valid. If this person wanted to, though they don't necessarily have to because this person is not communicating with them, they don't live together, this does seem to me to be like the coward's way out of a breakup of, they're not going to say they want to break up, but they're going to make you do it. I would probably either write a letter or text message, an email, whatever form of communication you want that'll be taken seriously. I would take off the collar, and then I would write an explanation for why it's happening. And honestly, at that point, I would not try to recover the relationship. I think the relationship as a friend could maybe still work out as more of an acquaintance friendship, kind of comet friend situation, but definitely not as a dom, because not being able to communicate on a continual basis and avoiding having hard conversations is a big, big no. And certainly being treated as what appears to be a stepstone relationship into having the bona fides to be a pro-dom that's not great. That would certainly be what would be going through my head if I was that person submissive is, okay, we have this relationship. It seems okay for a couple of months. They say they want to break, and then they come back and tell me, actually I want to be a pro-dom, and even if we kept playing, it's going to be a lot shorter, and this is what I want to do with my life. I'd be like, okay, so I was your starter relationship. I was here. That actually is something that I'm very worried about as a submissive with a bit of experience at this point in my life, is getting used as a starter sub by people. So maybe this is a little bit personal, touches on some fears that I have. If there is any kind of contract, I believe the dom has voided that entirely by not communicating and not sticking within their own limits. And of course, this maybe was a longer term relationship. These are people who had more experience with kink. I would maybe say, okay, you have to go back to your contract. You should see what it says in there first. If you didn't negotiate for something, you can't expect it, right? But then also they can't neglect their obligations to you as a partner. And maybe a first step then would be for let's say a relationship that had been going on for 2 years. This was a sudden change. I would first lay down the law of hey, you have to tell me what is happening. I need your answer by this date. And if I can't get that, if you can't provide it, totally fine. However, I cannot continue being in this relationship without that certainty because I don't feel safe and I don't feel like my needs are being respected enough to stay in a relationship in that context. And I think that should be acceptable. I know. When it comes to whether or not somebody can even communicate with you on a base level, that's a serious thing, in my opinion. So I think she's not the asshole for this. I just hope that this person, when they take off their collar, is able to heal from it, able to move on from this relationship, because boy, does it suck to feel like you are just somebody's starter relationship and that they are not taking this seriously and can't talk to you. Especially somebody who is in their mid-40s. Mid-30s. Somebody in their mid-30s should be able to have some level of difficult conversations with a partner. Even if you're new to kink, that should be a vanilla skill that you already have. And if you don't, you should work on it before you become a pro-dom. And honestly, even then, I'm not sure this person is maybe cut out for pro-dom life, because very few people are. It's a very hard line of work. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of consistent communication. But moving on, let's go ahead and move on to number 2 here. And this one is from the main Am I the Asshole subreddit. This is a little bit of a longer one, so buckle up, folks. Buckle up. And this says, am I the asshole for tying up my girlfriend and leaving her? You got to be careful on Am I the Asshole, because sometimes the titles will trick you and you think there's no way that can be justified, and then you read it and go, oh, I get it. So we're going to reserve judgment. But I am skeptical. All right, so it begins. So many factors to consider before making the big call as to whether or not I am indeed the asshole that most people would say I am. Weird way to start a post. Red flags are going off here, but okay. My girlfriend, 26, and I, 26, are into a bit of BDSM. I play the dominant role almost all the time in the bedroom, which she is quite content with. However, in discussions about equality around International Women's Day, all right, Deadpool called, it was agreed that she could take over in the bedroom and see how it goes. I know, I'm such a nice guy. Anyway, okay, the energy here is weird. Is this a shit post? What is this? Okay. Alrighty. The day comes for her first foray into being the dominant one, and she's gone to town. The ropes are all out and ready. She got a very sexy outfit with some big heels. I was pretty excited and a tad nervous for the first time giving up control, but I trusted her and thought she definitely deserved the chance to explore this side. So not long into this, and I'm very securely tied up on the bed, the girl has been paying attention to the knots. Then she has this smirk on her face, giggles, gets off the bed, goes and collects her phone from the bedside table, and walks out of the room. I'm lying there thinking, what the hell is she doing? There is no clock in the room, but I'm thinking it's gotta have been a good 15 minutes and she's still not back. I'm getting pretty mad now, and by the time she finally comes back in, probably 10 minutes after that, okay, so like 25 minutes total, I am furious. I blow up and make it quite clear that I didn't find whatever this was funny. She unties me and apologizes. I calm down and everything is cool. I mean, we don't have sex, but there are no grudges being held. Next week, we are back to our old antics of BDSM, but I'm back in charge. So my girlfriend is tied to the bed. You know how it is. Sure. And I decide to pull the same old trick that she did last week. I walk out of the room and go watch an episode of Friends, which I think is about the length of time she left me in there, which is, it's a sitcom TV show, probably 23 to 25 minutes running time. Sure, yeah, why not? I come back in the room thinking I've been very funny in filming, as I predict her reaction should be priceless. Okay, so he walks into the room filming her reaction. That's an escalation? It was not. She was as pissed off, if not more so, than I was. Obviously, that video gets deleted, and I apologize as profusely as she did the week before. So, fellow humans, am I the asshole for pulling the same prank on my girlfriend that she pulled on me? Okay. This is a really easy one. Everyone sucks here. This is very easy. Everyone sucks. No one should be doing any of that. There's so many things that went wrong here, so let's break it down. All right, first of all, it is great if you want to explore your partner's dominant side when they are normally your submissive in the bedroom. That is great. When you do, okay, so there's I want to be careful about how I phrase this, and I hope people will understand what I mean by this, but if you are going to suddenly say, girlfriend, for International Women's Day, you get to be in charge, and then say nothing else and place no limits whatsoever, do no negotiation, don't talk about anything up front, this is why that's a bad idea, is what I will say. Because when you give somebody who has never taught before, never been a dom, maybe only knows bondage from watching you do it, you don't give her any of the background safety information, and just say, have at it, and then you just go, it'll be fine, and then it's not fine. Well, neither person here did their due diligence in informing themselves of the risks of doing bondage. One of the biggest risks of bondage is being left alone. You guys will hear this in all of my videos where I talk about bondage, right? Never actually leave people alone. You can create a scenario where you make them feel like they're alone. You can set up cameras. You can be right outside the door. You can have it set up all sorts of ways to try to get to that feeling. But leaving someone actually really alone in a house or in a room where they can't communicate with you and they can't get out because they're in bondage tied to a bed, that is very, very, very high risk. Things can go wrong very quickly, whether it be a natural disaster or some kind of sudden medical issue or Lord knows what, and that is how people pass away doing kink, just to be totally honest with you. That is like one of the number one ways that people die doing BDSM. It is very serious. And so on the one hand, nobody informed themselves. Seemingly this person also was not informed about why it was a big deal. I think he was upset about being left alone and it being kind of like a bratty thing that was like mean to do because then they didn't get to play. Like, I don't think the anger here is directed at being left alone because that's dangerous to do to someone. I think they don't say what it is that upsets them about it, but I just don't get the sense that it is out of danger, because the appropriate response to that is not to then say nothing about other than to hear them apologize and then do the same thing a week later to them to give them a taste of their own medicine. The appropriate dom thing to do in this scenario would be to sit down, have a conversation, say, hey, this is why you shouldn't do stuff like this, and then have a plan going forward where if you ever do switch again, there's going to be very clear, very narrow expectations of what is allowed to happen, whether that be pre-approval for each activity or just having a very thorough outline of like, this is what's going to happen, or whatever, just double check that nothing's going to happen that's going to be completely out of line. And I could see how without the proper information, somebody might think this is like a funny joke to do as a brat because, people randomly choke each other to passing out without thinking twice about it. So like, why not, Like, people do lots of dangerous stuff without really realizing how dangerous it is because of their inexperience. But yeah, no, she should not have done that. I think if she was going to be in control, she should have taken that role a lot more seriously. If she'd really actually want to explore her switch side or just like be a good partner. And there was just a lack of communication of expectations all around. And, like, frankly, I'm not sure that the dude in this scenario practices safe kink either, because he seemingly does not know why it's dangerous or not either. I mean, let me double check here. It doesn't say anything about how, like, he just didn't find it funny and he's upset about it. But I don't think it's because he's angry that it's dangerous. So I don't see anything about that. There's absolutely... pulling pranks in BDSM in general is like a dangerous idea. Like, as a brat, you gotta be very, very, very clear about what boundaries you're sticking in between, because, oh lordy, that could have gone very bad. Yeah, it just reeks of immaturity to like do the same thing back. I just like, ugh. Maybe to somebody that would be funny, but definitely not to me. And then like being surprised that she was even more upset about it. Like, you guys should have had a conversation and, like, no grudges being held. You did the exact same thing to her on purpose and then filmed her, and you're going to tell me there's not a grudge? I smell a liar. I smell a liar, 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 okay? Yeah, don't leave people alone when you do bondage. Inform yourself. If you're going to tell a partner, do whatever you want to me for International Women's Day, you should be prepared for there to be significant consequences when the person you're doing that with is a brand new dom, and you both should be informing yourselves, honestly. Just that's the end of the line there. All right, moving on. I think we have probably time for one more here. Ooh, okay, this should be an interesting one. This is from the smaller subreddit again, and this one is, am I the asshole for not being okay with my friend's dynamic? Okay, so we have potential for kink shaming, potential for misunderstanding BDSM. Let us see what they have to say. A few of my BDSM friends are in dynamic I think are very dangerous. We started talking about it on a private munch party. Okay, I suspect this person's first language is not English, so just keep that in mind. They told me that the dynamic they're in doesn't have safe words and the sub doesn't have limits. The dom decides what the limits are. This dynamic is about everything in their life as far as I know. I admit that I got very upset about hearing this, as I have been in an abusive relationship. I removed myself from the situation and talked to one of my friends about it a little. But it's an agree to disagree situation at the moment. I think this kind of dynamics make it very hard to leave an unhealthy relationship. I think you need a sense of self and boundaries to keep a relationship healthy and be able to leave if needed. In that sense, the comment from one of the submissive partner that she would just leave was worrisome to me. I don't know how to relate to this people from now on. They were becoming good friends, but I don't want to support relationships I think are unhealthy. Am I wrong for not wanting to be friends anymore? Is that even the right move? Or should I push for making the relationship healthier? Or is that not my place and kink shaming? Okay, this is a complicated one, especially not knowing the details from the people who are actually in the relationship. I think, let's start with the positives, okay? I think initially, good on them for removing themselves from that situation and then pausing to reflect and talk about it with somebody else. I think whether or not somebody else's relationship is actually healthy or like well done, you can still have feelings about it and you can have an emotional response. It just depends on how you act on that emotional response, right? Like you can keep that to yourself, or you can barge in and attempt to save them by like kidnapping them and making them go to like a rehab program for, desubmissifying people. I don't know. That's maybe a thing somewhere. And the part about this that gives me pause is the dominant decides what their limits are. Because if somebody else, in my mind, if somebody else is deciding your limits for you, those are not limits. Those are the framework of the relationship, right? Your limit should be yours. Your boundaries should be yours. They should not be picked by somebody else, or they're not really those things. And maybe that's just like a language thing, right? And they could be having a 24/7 total power exchange master-slave thing, right? In which case, maybe the phrasing might be off, maybe not like the perfect version of doing that, but they could be in a very extreme relationship where somebody is deciding their day-to-day life at a very high level, and that might be what they want from a relationship. And I know several people in the community who have those types of relationships, who are experienced, that as far as I can tell are happy and healthy, where they have had literal community interventions happen against them because somebody in the community, a friend, an acquaintance, somebody who just knew them from a bunch, just decides there's no way this can be healthy because look at how many bruises they have, look at how they talk about this, look at like the collar they're wearing, look at whatever, right? And somebody decides to make it their mission to like save this person who maybe doesn't really want to or like need to be saved because nothing is actually wrong. And I think if you are somebody who has a past history of abuse, if you do have trauma around high control relationships, it is probably best for you to move on and to be in a different friend group where you don't have to confront those things. Maybe at some point farther down in your healing journey, you can analyze that and sit with it and be comfortable, but you should not force yourself. And I get the urge to want to be around somebody because you are afraid things are unhealthy and you want to stay open to a connection because you hope that maybe you can be there for them when they realize it's unhealthy. But you do, in my opinion, have to take care of yourself first, right? You do have to take care of your own mental well-being, because if you can't do that, you're not going to be able to be there for that person in the way that they might ultimately need you to be, and you can end up doing more harm than good. And I think as long as something is not expressed directly to the person about their relationship being bad or feeling like they're hurting themselves or saying actually you're being abused like to their face, I think as long as you're not doing anything like that, your inside thoughts can be your inside thoughts. It doesn't like make you an asshole. Now, if you were to go up to them and go to the next munch and say, how do you not realize you're being abused? I know because I was abused, and listen to me, right? I know what's best for you, and I am going to push for this to be a healthier dynamic. Because that is not your place. You cannot save them from that if they do not want to be saved. And as I've talked about before in other videos, attempting to save someone by force in many situations where you actually can't, you don't have authority to do that, right? You're not, a medical professional. You are not a police officer, nothing like that, right? You don't really have a way of making them do anything else. Otherwise, that's like false imprisonment and kidnapping on your end. You can very quickly make a bad situation worse by attempting to force the issue, as opposed to being a supportive friend and hopefully helping them over time realize that they need to leave and giving them the support emotionally, financially, otherwise, to give them the ability to leave if that's what they decide they want. But that whole situation is like very complicated and very muddy and confusing. This is certainly not a full conversation about that, but it is a factor to consider. So no, don't rush in and like try to forcibly help somebody. And I would maybe keep passive tabs on it if it was me, if I was seeing that. I've certainly been around people in the kink community where I'm like, ooh, this is weird. Why did this couple who has like a really massive age gap, they show up, they don't talk to anybody, and then they leave instantly the second that they're done playing. They don't ever like hang out with people. Are they trying to prevent the younger partner from talking to anybody? Or are they just like not into the public scene? Like, what's going on there? I'm going to like passively keep tabs on that in the background. So I'm going to tentatively say, without having all the information, that I think that there are no assholes here. Actually, let me double check again. Did they say anything to this person's face before I say that definitively? Okay, so they only talked about it with another, like a third party. They did not actually talk to the person who is in this relationship. So, okay, I think that that's, fair enough. Again, I'm going to stick with, I don't think anyone's an asshole here. I think that there is a person who, like, has a very high-level BDSM relationship that may or may not be safe, but it is very hard to tell from the outside looking in. People play without safe words. People play without limits or boundaries in MS and TPE and ad hoc scenes. It happens. It's risky, for sure. It should not necessarily be considered a beginner activity or way to start doing BDSM, but people do that, right? And at the same time, I think being triggered because of past abuse or because of concerns about somebody's well-being is understandable. I don't think they had like a crazy, totally out of proportion reaction here. They just have some feelings and want to know how to sort through it. I think that's like totally valid. So, I believe that's about all the time we have for today. I hope that you all enjoyed this. I will know your thoughts about this one in a comment down below. What are your verdicts on any of these stories? Do you agree, disagree? Do you have any other big Reddit stories I should look into for next time if we do another one of these? And yeah, just let me know what you think if you want to see another one of these sometime in the future. And if you want to check out more of my content, I do make videos twice a week about all different kink and BDSM related activities. And if you really want to support my channel, the best you can do is with Patreon. Link to that will be down below. If you do already support me there, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you all next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.